Hey everybody, Bill Caskey Live. Actually, it's Caskey Live, 8:30. We are going to talk about skill today. What's the skill of the future? What's the number one skill of the future? And I've got a surprise for you because it's probably not what you think it is. And I put the, what did I put this whole meditation thing up there? And no, that is not the skill of the future. It's connected to that, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. I'm really glad you're joining me, and we go live every day for 10, 15 minutes, some days 20 minutes. Like Friday, we did a little bit longer session, but most days 10 to 15 minutes. And I want to just give you something that we've been working on with our clients. I've got a lot of clients, corporate clients, and also individual clients. For those of you that don't know who I am, I've been in the training and coaching business for the last 30 years, and have a couple of podcasts, video channel, and I'm constantly trying to figure out a way to get some of this content that happens in the rooms, happens in the coaching rooms and training rooms out to you. Not all of it, but some of it. And if you ever want to get a hold of me and contact me and schedule a call, you can go to billcaskey.com. You can also go right to schedule a call with Caskey.com. Isn't that clever? I'm going to be releasing a book here this week, but I've talked about that ad nauseum. So the question today is, when you look at your future and look at your business goals and your vision for your life, as I do, what are the skills that you're going to need? Because the skills of the past don't get you to the vision of the future. They just don't. And I think a lot of times we are so invested in the skills that we've learned over the years that we don't pay much attention to which skills don't matter anymore and which skills do we need to acquire. And the number one skill I think we need, especially in a time of change and a time of upheaval and drama and society and just a lot of change very quickly, is the skill of self-awareness. And some of you might say, well, that's not really a skill though. That's not, okay, I just want to make sure I'm on. That's not really a skill, Bill. Well, I think it is, because it's something that can be improved upon. You can get better at self-awareness, and we'll talk about what a definition here is in a minute. You can spend time on it. You can actually be intentional about it. So that would fit in that skill bucket. I don't think we think about it as a skill, and therefore we're not very good at it. You've been around people before that you say to yourself, not out loud, but to yourself, boy, I wish they had a few more ounces of self-awareness before they double dipped or whatever they do that would cause you to say that. But we don't look at ourselves that way. It's easy to look at other people and say, man, I wish she had more self-awareness. I had a guy that worked for me at one time, and whenever he was on a group call, a Zoom call, or a phone call, he would be, coughing and sneezing and snorting and never mute himself. And it was like, and he was a great guy, and regrettably he has passed, but great guy and did pretty well in the business, but his self-awareness was literally zero. And that just wasn't on the phone. That was in a lot of parts of his life. And so I think it's easy to look at other people, a little harder to look at ourselves. But I've got some questions here for you. Let's first define what self-awareness means. It's the ability to tune into your feelings, thoughts, and actions. And being self-aware means being able to recognize how other people see you. People who are self-aware recognize their strengths and their challenges. So it's not just a matter of, well, I need to be aware of what others think of me. That's a slice of it. But also it's, well, am I aware of my gifts? We're going to go through these questions here. There are just 3 or 4 that I want you to think about today. And this is not a fix-it session. I'm not sure self-awareness is something that can be fixed. I think it can be improved on, and you can become mindful of. So what are the questions you need to ask yourself? Number 1, are you and am I aware of my blind spots? We all have blind spots. And when I ask the question, you're probably thinking, well, if it's a blind spot, how do I become aware of it? Well, you can. Just look around some things in your life that aren't working. I've done that recently in my business and saying, what's not working here? And what happens is you start to shine the light on those blind spots and they become apparent. So if you have a blind spot in your business, if you just want to start thinking about that, you can even ask your manager or people around you what this is for you. But I think if you just ask yourself the question, where are my blind spots, either in my relationships, in my parenting, in my business development, in my sales process, because I know a lot of you are in sales, just ask yourself, where is it? And I think the light will start to shine on it. Number two, are you aware of your gifts? And we talked about this yesterday a little bit. If you didn't see yesterday's session, spent a little bit more time on what are the gifts that we have and how do we recognize those? And at some point, we have to be aware of what our gifts are, or it's going to be impossible for us to use them. So, but that's a good self-awareness question, I think, is do you know what your gifts are, what your talents are, what your abilities are and current skills? Where are you able to impact people? And through your personality, through your messaging, through your video shooting skills, or what are those areas that you have gifts in? The third area is, are you aware of your influence and impact? And this can slice both ways here. This can slice positively. Are you aware of the positive impact you bring when you shoot video, or when you podcast, or when you write articles, or where you call people up, where you develop relationships, where you make cold calls, whatever. But also it's the downside too. It's, do you know what kind of impact you have? And I heard it once referred to as, what kind of a shadow do you cast when you walk into a room? Like I'm 6'5", on a good day, 215, on a bad day, 218. What kind of shadow do I cast? Well, I cast a pretty big shadow. Hopefully it's not really super dark. But I've got to be conscious of that and mindful that when you're 6'5" and you walk into a room with a bunch of short people, 6 feet or below, I can't stand too close. If I stand too close, they're looking up and I'm looking down. It's not a good sight. So I've got to be mindful just physically of myself. But what kind of influence do you have? What kind of impact when you're in a sales process, or you're conducting a sales meeting with somebody, in an interview, or whatever you want to call it in your business? Are you aware of how you ask questions? Are you aware of how you acknowledge the other person? When you ask a question and they answer, they meaning probably your customer, prospect, are we aware that we don't acknowledge very well? I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying, as a general population, we don't. We ask a question, they answer it, we go on to the next question. Well, how good does that feel to them? Not very. Because especially if it's a long question and where they're sharing something kind of private, and they're sharing something about their problem, and we don't comment, or we don't react, we don't acknowledge, that's a self-awareness issue. Because we are so non-self-aware, all we think about is the next logical question. All we think about is, well, okay, well, they're saying that, how do I make the case then based on that? How do I sell them based on that? And is that an objection? Is that a report? What is that? And we got all up inside our own head, and we don't acknowledge, because we're thinking about ourselves. So one thing you can think about when you're in, I look at self-awareness as like there's the macro thing, like the gifts, and how do I operate in the world? And do I have a vision? Do I have goals? Do I have plans? Am I following those every day? Do I refer? Do I pray? Do I meditate? All those things. But there's also the micro self-awareness, which is where you're in a conversation with somebody. And here's one example. I know you've seen this before, and my people that I know, you get tired of me hearing it. Have you ever been in a conversation where you ask a whole bunch of questions and the person doesn't ask you one question? Yeah, we've been in that. Been in that a lot. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's friends. Probably not friends, because if that was a common practice, you wouldn't hang around. You wouldn't probably be friends with them, because that's the whole idea of a friendship, is there's collaboration, there's back and forth. It's, I'm going to ask you some questions, you're going to ask me some questions. But we've been in those conversations where it's all one way, or We've been in a conversation where we ask a question, they give a big, long answer. They ask us a question. We start to give an answer and they interrupt and then go back to their big, long answer. That's just a self-awareness thing. I don't think it's a thing of evil or nefariousness, or I don't think they don't care about us. It's just a self-awareness. I'm not self-aware to understand that I've been talking 9 minutes of this conversation and I haven't asked them one question. That's all self-awareness. So it's easy, as I said earlier, to see it when it's somebody else, a little harder when it's us. So I just want you to be aware of those things today. Do I have any blind spots? And again, sometimes it's hard to see the blind spots because they're blind spots. Are you aware of your gifts and talents and skills? Are you really aware of those? And if I hear you say, well, yeah, I'm pretty good on the piano. Okay. Are you really good on the piano? Yeah, I'm really good on the piano. Well, okay, so that's a gift, that's a talent. How are you using that? Well, I play at night. I go in the back room. I've got a closet. I put a piano in. I play it. I don't want anybody to hear it. Well, now we've got another problem, but we're not going to get into that today. But do you have gifts? And where is your influence and impact? Are you aware of that? Positive influence and impact, negative influence and impact. But I wanted you to have those today. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about another skill that's a little bit more, this is kind of airy. This is up in the high altitude. We're going to get down to a sales skill tomorrow that I think is one of those that we don't pay nearly enough attention to. And you VPs of sales, CEOs, owners, founders, those who manage people, you will see this gap in your people skills. And I think it's a gap in all of our skills. So I will see you tomorrow. You can go to BillCaskey.com if you want to check out more stuff from